I think violence is often built out of power structures. I don't know if I'm going to be saying this correctly, but I think violence is a result of wanting power and wanting to spread power. So violence doesn't have any benefit beyond sometimes getting you what you want. Like, people aren't violent to other people for fun. There's usually something they're trying to get out of it. So, like, when you're verbally violent with, like, a partner or a friend, it's because you want them to maybe agree with you or do what you want. When you're when people are, like, physically abusive to, like, their husbands or their wives, it's usually because they physically want to force them to stay beneath them, and they don't want them to think for themselves or to feel like they have physical freedom. And when you have things like political violence, is always about, like, politics and money and power. So I feel like my thoughts on violence are that violence is just inherently a result of power structures that we keep in place, and we as human beings we're greedy and we like power. So I'm not going to say, like, oh, if you got rid of power structures, you'd get rid of violence, because you can't get rid of power structures. Like, as much as, I don't know, I feel like people preach that and preach, like, breaking down power structures and heteronormativity and classism and stuff. I mean, like, that is inherently in our nature. So I feel like violence is not something we can avoid. There's always going to be someone being violent to someone else. feel like we only address violence when you can do so through popular media. Like, we only talk, like, here's an example I'm thinking of right now. So the other day, there's a rapper called 21 Savage. He's famous, he's getting a lot of money, got a lot of cash, a lot of attention, and the other day, ICE apparently showed up at his door and saying that he was an illegal immigrant and he's actually from the UK and he was born there and that he came here illegally, which is, I mean, a whole issue in itself. But I thought what was kind of ironic about it was that obviously it got televised. I mean, he's famous. And when an article came out that like 21 Savage is being held in one of like the worst detention centers under ICE, like it's really blown up on social media. And I feel kind of like, not annoyed. I feel like I'm not trying to be a slacktivist, but I thought it was really, really funny that people only started to like share info about ICE detention when it's someone famous that they don't even know, they don't even care about. Like, there's really no direct relation between you and them, and yet there's been constant conversation about how bad ICE detention centers are and how violent they're being and how, like, I mean, kids have died in detention. Like, people under the ages of 10 and 11 and like are dying because of how horrible the conditions are, and families are constantly being torn apart. And we've definitely been talking about it. I'm not saying we haven't, but I felt kind of upset that when that violence is performed against people of a lower class, it's not really mentioned. Because I mean, you can't, I mean, racism definitely factors in, but I mean, 21 Savage is black and a lot of people at the border are brown, so I'm gonna just pull that out for a second and say, like, okay, they're both people of color, so what's the dividing factor beyond that is class and social status, and how we care about people with insane social status who I don't know why they have social status. I mean, they're just another person making art, like, so are like hundreds and thousands of other people. And then when it comes to like kids and parents, like, we're just like, oh no, that's awful, it sucks. We don't like share it, like we don't even like get engaged in our basic slacktivism when it's like people who are lower class. But when it's people that are famous, suddenly our slacktivism, even though it's not doing anything, is like through the roof, and we're like tweeting about it everywhere and stuff. So I think that's funny, and I think it factors into like even issues with housing. So like issues and talks about gentrification, which is 100% a form of violence, because being forcefully displaced is going to induce emotional trauma, physical trauma as well, mental trauma and other things, and in turn that is violence. We don't really talk about it. And then I think it's funny that when the California fires were happening, which were absolutely awful, I mean, losing your home is awful regardless, but when like famous people were losing their homes, people were like, oh my god, this is so sad, people losing their homes, that must be awful. And it's like, well, they also probably have the money to buy another home. And like, I just say transfer like your thoughts on that pain to like people who go through gentrification and are kicked out of their homes and are, because they have horrible systems in place forcing them to. So I don't know, I feel like I wanted to talk about sexual violence and like emotional abuse and stuff, but I think because of the news and media, that's where my thoughts are. And then I think those end up leading to other things, because I think when you're not a violent person but violence happens to you, there's like someone who quotes about this, when violence happens to you, it happens to other people or something like that, because you have no outlet for your violence, and towards like you can't take it out on the people who have done it to you directly. So instead you take it out on people you know and love. And so people who have like experienced violence from war, for example, like don't get to like go and shake their fists at their politicians being like, why did you do this to me? So they'll take it out on family and friends, often in the form of like physical abuse or like alcoholism and physical abuse and things like that. So I feel like that classism, racism, abuse is like really heavily factoring into like how other people get violence.